As history is just old news, we thought it would be fun to cover the dumbest stories we could find, starting with the Cadaver Synod, better known as that time the corpse of a dead pope was put on trial. What a lot of people tend to forget is that the further you go back in history, the more the sense of law and justice starts to look like it was just being made up as they went along.
And modern problems require modern solutions.
Take Edward the Confessor for example, who after being unable to mind his own business, accused his dear mother of adultery. In order to settle the matter of her purity, she would be forced to walk barefoot over burning coals, and if she emerged unscathed, she would be judged as not a sword-loving degenerate. If she was however found guilty, she would be sent straight to horny jail. Not really, they actually set her on fire. At the same time, in Frankish society, if a man decided to take your stuff, you wouldn't attempt to sue them for damages in a court of law. Rather, you'd just take the sharpest thing you could find and kill the absolute shit out of them. Problem solved. A perfect libertarian monarchy. The mid to late 800s was not a good time to be a pope. Previously the Catholic Church had the support of the late Roman Empire, which gave it perks, like having a fuck ton of money and protection from other factions looking to take their shit. In return, Roman emperors could be crowned by the Pope himself, solidifying their power with the authority of the Church. However, by this time, the Roman Empire was not quite the Europe-dominating superpower it once was, meaning the Church needed to make friends with other kingdoms and factions to enjoy these same privileges. This is where we meet the protagonist of our story, Bishop Formosus of Portus. At this time, Bishop Formosus was already making waves in Catholic circles in the western suburbs of Rome, but his praying career really took off when he was noticed by the Pope and told to manage important church matters around the continent. While on his European tour, he was said to have performed exceptionally in his duties, meaning when the position of Pope had its next vacancy, his name was thrown around as a strong contender. However, when the next pope was chosen in 872, the position went to his rival Pope John VIII. Our man Formosus quickly found himself on the wrong side of an argument on who should be crowned the new Roman emperor, and was forced to flee Rome entirely. Pope John then convened a synod, which is just a council of high-ranking bishops, and charged Formosus with conspiring to cause the destruction of the papacy. Our boy Formosus was convicted, stripped of his Catholic rank, and excommunicated, meaning he was now considered a stranger to the church. This was the last we hear from Formosus.
Sorry to disappoint you! You triggered my trap card!
6 years later, after all this time, Pope John decided to put the past behind them and lift the excommunication order on Formosus. The only thing he asked was that he did not return to Rome and did not exercise the duties of a priest. At this time in history, however, popes tended to get killed off faster than side characters, written by George R.R. Martin. So when Paul was bonked on the head, the next pope who took power lifted all remaining penalties on Formosus. He then offered to return Formosus to his previous position, to which he replied, "Fucking sure I guess." 3 more popes came and went over the next few years, with a staff turnover rate higher than a McDonald's restaurant in a dodgy neighborhood. But finally, our West Side wonder boy took up the mantle and became the first pope to have ever been previously excommunicated. Although as previously mentioned, this wasn't exactly the easiest time to be a pope, and the messy relationship between the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church was no less complicated. The problem was that the previous pope had already crowned a man called Guy III of Spoleto to be the new emperor, but our boy Formosus, always one to back a different horse, had other plans. Living up to his reputation as a West Side wordsmith, he convinced another fellow, Arnulf of Carentia, to invade Italy and take the crown by force, and just like that, Rome had a new emperor. Unfortunately, as the stressful position of pope was terrible for a person's health, Formosus died shortly after crowning Arnulf, but this didn't mean the church didn't have to live with his actions. As it turns out, the still very powerful Spoleto family wasn't exactly happy with one of their own being robbed of the title of emperor, and their sights were now set on the church for revenge. The Spoleto family put pressure on fresh Pope Stephen VI to put Formosus on trial, and even though the man had been buried for over 8 months, Pope Stephen, not a big fan of Formosus anyway, said fucking sure I guess. So, in the spirit of keeping the church out of more unnecessary conflict, the bishops and cardinals were assembled, the body of Formosus was dug out of the ground, and the trial of a corpse was officially commenced. It must have been hard to imagine these high-ranking church officials walking into the Basilica of St. John and being met with the very dead Formosus, decked out in his crown and holy vestments, but we can assume it probably smelled like absolute shit. Pope Stephen appointed himself as the prosecutor and gave the position of the corpse's lawyer to an 18-year-old intern. What followed was the highest-ranking member of the Catholic Church proceeding to scream a number of insults at the corpse of his predecessor, while the rest of the court wisely kept silent. The charges against Formosus related to that time he was excommunicated and stripped of all of his accumulated Jesus XP, and among a variety of paraphrased questions asked of Formosus were why the fuck did you invade Italy, why the fuck did you come back to the church, and why are you a degenerate no good liar. As it turned out, poor dead Formosus had no good answers to these striking questions, so Pope Stephen proposed that Formosus be found guilty on all charges. The bishops present, unable to imagine why they would try and extend this process any longer, collectively said, "Here, seemed absolutely beyond reasonable doubt. Fucking sure I guess." Formosus' 3 favorite fingers were then cut off, his papal garments were removed, and his body was tossed into the Tiber River, a punishment common for criminals at the time. With this being said, the Catholic Church was not as good at covering up their problems as they would later become, and monks sympathetic to Formosus would later drag his corpse out of the river and spread word that the body was now performing miracles. This led to bishops still loyal to Formosus to stage a coup in the Vatican, throw Pope Stephen in the dungeon, and have him subsequently strangled. All charges imposed by the corpse trial were then thrown out, and Formosus was returned to his vault once more. He would later be dug up and buried one last time for shits and giggles, before the church finally put an official ban on digging up the dead to put on trial. Over the next several centuries, scores of other corpses would have their day in court throughout Western Europe, but our boy Formosus would at last remain buried. With all this out of the way, I'm just going to say it. You have a nice cock. However, with our friends from Manscaped, it could be even better. Manscaped's new performance package kit is like nano boosting your knob and will earn the admiration of all who consensually gaze upon its glory. The flagship of the pack is the new Lawnmower 3.0, which is a waterproof trimmer with safe skin technology to reduce those pesky nicks and cuts. The 60-minute battery life will cater for even the manliest Greek people you know. The quiet stroke technology will let you shave those nuts like a ninja, and the USB charging dock means you'll never have to go shopping for batteries like an absolute boomer. Between you and me, I also use the lawnmower to shave my face. It's not even illegal, the cops can't stop you. By using the code on screen, viewers will also receive 20% off, as well as ongoing replacement blades, free shipping, and 2 free gifts, valued at 39 freedom bucks. Manscaped, don't say Uncle Swag never did anything for your penis.